Okay, might get started. I'll start again with the refuge prayer. We call it refuge, taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. There's quite a few extra people here tonight, so some of you may not know what this means, and I've explained it over the weeks, but it's turning, before you do any sort of practice or meditation, you turn your mind to someone or something that inspires you, and thoughts that inspire you and thoughts that will help your mind. So of course this is a Buddhist centre, so we look to the Buddha, and the Buddha purified his mind of all negative states and filled his mind with all positive, virtuous states of love and compassion and caring for others. So his mind was completely imbued with love and compassion, and he'd managed to purify all negative states of anger, attachment, ignorance, jealousy, pride, all of those things gone from his mind, only to live in this kind of blissful, which is a blissful state of freeing yourself of all of this angst and only feeling love and compassion for others and wishing to help them. So it's in a completely selfless state. So it's because we're constantly thinking about ourselves and what we can get or what we can get rid of that we suffer. So we turn to those who can inspire us, and we say, we're taking refuge in them. So you can also think of others like, like Jesus. I often mention, the life of Jesus was a perfect example of how to live, and Nelson Mandela, and anyone else that you can think of. So you're sort of getting inspiration. And then generating bodhicitta is this mind that I want to free myself from suffering, and in understanding the suffering and how awful it is and that how much I want to be free of it, I'm only one person and everyone else is in the same state and they want to be free of suffering. Everything that we do, every waking moment, is that we're in the pursuit of happiness of one form or another, so that all other people are in this suffering state as well. And so that thought can sort of inspire you to think, well, if I could help myself, then I'd be able to inspire others the way the Buddha inspires. And other people have inspired throughout the ages, have actually achieved these states and written the texts and taught, do the teachings and stuff and help us. Sorry, Neil? Okay. Okay, so I'll say the refuge and generating bodhicitta prayer, and you don't. There's never any obligation to participate in anything that goes on here. You can just sort of sit and absorb the information or not. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So just a couple of things from last week that I want to qualify when I talked about reincarnation and how the Western mind is really, it's a very alien concept to us. But then when you do some of the meditations or you think about it, there's a great, there is kind of evidence for the mind being a continuum that doesn't actually begin or end with birth and death, and that that you can watch your mind, and we'll do this meditation first up, I think, tonight, because I talked about it last week as well and said that we might do it. And you get this sense that, where did the first moment of mind come from? Nothing comes from nothing. It didn't just pop out of thin air. So it's quite a nice meditation to think about it. But when I talked about that last week, I said, to me, it sort of makes more sense than thinking of a God out there controlling everything. Now, there is, and Geshe Doga often refers to this, that there is definitely a place for believing in God, and that God inspires and Jesus inspire people in exactly the same way as we find inspiration in Buddhism, and that if people follow the teachings in the Christian faith, there is great inspiration and pathways to happiness there as well, and it helps people. So in all spiritual traditions, and that's why it's one of the discussions about why there are different spiritual traditions. It's different minds, different suit different people, different sort of ways of looking at things is and whatever's helpful. So you'll often hear the lamas praising their Christian friends or Muslim friends that teach and help people as well. So I didn't want to give anyone the wrong impression. So and when I started, I said that we'll talk about the 12 links, and I might get there, but we'll do this meditation first. And I think a lot of what I've been talking about has been about the 12 links anyway, not in a academic way, but everything that we refer to sort of does come back to this idea of the 12 links. And the 12 links, being sorry for people that are new here tonight, are a description of how, in one sense, we take rebirth, what causes our rebirth, and why are we all different, what's sort of, how children are born with different talents and stuff. It's quite interesting to sort of think, well, where did that come from? But it's also about our moment-to-moment existence. What are we doing that's causing us to keep cycling in suffering? And the 12 links is a very technical description of how we do this, how this happens. And it starts with ignorance. And I talked about that on the first night. And it's the ignorance of, firstly, that the ignorance to our suffering and the causes of our suffering. That what we see as pleasure is actually a cause of suffering. And why do we keep doing it? Why do we keep pursuing happiness with sort of all of these negative attitudes of grasping? So it's that kind of ignorance of really not understanding. We understand that we're suffering, and sometimes we don't acknowledge that just how much we're suffering, but we're sort of often questioning, what the hell's going on here? I thought I was a good person, and why do bad things keep happening? So the 12 links talks about planting seeds of karma onto your mind stream, and that with this idea of reincarnation and endless rebirths, that we're actually carrying a lot of seeds on our mind. And that's the second link. Ignorance is the first link. It's the ignorance of not understanding that grasping onto things is actually what's causing us the suffering. And we grasp because we see things as real and in and of themselves, and a cause for our happiness or a cause for our unhappiness, and then we push them away, and we grasp at things as very sort of solid and real and existing that way. And then when you analyse down, you can't really find where the real happiness or unhappiness exists in these objects, but we grasp onto them and point to those things as what we want or don't want. And by doing that, we act on things, and then that causes karmic imprints on our mind. And volitional factors is the and then consciousness. Our consciousness is kind of like the ground in which these seeds are left. So you do an action, the action itself is done and finished, but it leaves an imprint in your mind and creates habits. And when conditions are right, then those imprints sort of come to fruition again and produce more seeds that you put onto your mind stream. And it continues on like that. And then that's why there's habits of anger or habits of desire and attachment and jealousy and pride. You know, we describe people as being, oh, they're a very proud person or they're a very jealous person or something. And maybe, you know, in those moments they are, but it's seeds ripening on your mind so that it's causing, then you create the cause for more to happen. I'll leave it there for the minute and we might do this meditation. I might look, just are there any questions just at the minute of anything? I think it's good to sort of get people's thoughts. Okay. I'll read a little bit of this first and then we'll do some meditation. So the mind has been compared to a vast ocean and our perceptions, thoughts and emotions to waves rising and falling on the surface. This analogy helps us to understand the experiences that occur while we are meditating or going about our daily lives. But to get a feeling for where the mind comes from and where it goes to, it is useful to think of it as a river flowing through time. Each moment leads uninterruptedly to the next. The mind flows along ceaselessly day and night, a stream of countless momentary experiences, always changing. Thoughts and feelings arise and quickly disappear, but they leave imprints and are carried on the mind stream. Buddhism explains that the mind is without beginning or end, unlike the body, which is conceived, born, dies and disintegrates. Our personality and experiences of this life are shaped by the imprints carried on the mind from past lives. Likewise, whatever we do and think now determines our future experiences. It is up to us. We can be whatever we want as long as we channel our energies in that direction. To do this, we need to understand the mind and learn how to use it skillfully. So the idea, again, that she's talking about is that this idea of reincarnation and rebirth is an alien thought. So there are several analytical approaches to considering the validity of the mental continuity. First, the mind is impermanent, transitory, changing from moment to moment. Thus, it is an effect and a result, the product of causes and conditions. So being the product of causes and conditions means we're all a product of our childhood, our parents, our family environment, our schooling. We're, you know, everything that has kind of happened around us causes us to be who we are and think the way we think or do what we do now. We are a product of the society that we live in. And all of this is mental choices that we've made along the way, or things that have impacted on us, that have driven us in certain directions. But it's all mental activity. And they say that everything exists as through causes, conditions and naming them. Nothing exists inherently in and of itself. And when I talk about a jealous person or a proud person or an angry person, if they really were, they would be that all the time. Or if I was angry, you know, I could describe myself as an angry person, I would be angry all the time and never capable of anything else. If that's what, and that's what we do. We kind of label and we see things as this and that, without realising it is this ever-flowing, changing. And if someone is angry, they're angry for reasons. There were things that caused them to be angry. So the anger isn't just there without cause. Do you see what I mean? So there's all this stuff impacting all the time and causing our minds to ebb and flow and change. And our self-talk, you know, the way we describe ourselves. We think of ourselves in a certain way, but that's just us grasping onto something that doesn't actually really exist. And when you analyse and you look for it, you can't find that thing that you're labelling. Where is it? Is it in the physical, or is it in your mental? You know, which moment of mind is that thing? Okay, we'll do some meditation. So we'll do some breathing at first, and then I'll move into the meditation. So you sit with your back straight, but relaxed. And when you're meditating, and it's a bit easier when you're doing an analytical meditation or someone is talking you through it, it's a bit easier to stay with it. But if you're meditating at home on your own, you often find that you're drifting, following thoughts. So you need to be mindful of that and just bring yourself back to whatever it is, focusing on that. And you can strengthen that ability over time to actually focus, and that actually feeds out into everything that you do. You focus. An ability to stay with things becomes stronger, but you need to continually, in your meditation, if just breathing, bring yourself back to the object that you're meant to be focusing on. And you often, when you first start to meditate, you'll hear the chatter. The chatter gets louder, or it's because you're more aware of it, and you think, "Oh my God, you know, I'm really useless at this." But in fact, you've become more aware of what's actually going on in your mind, and that's not a bad thing. You can start to learn to let the thoughts go, let them pass. Don't fight with them, just see them as passing clouds, and that your mind is a clear space, and that everything that you experience and think and feel is a reflection in that space. And just let it pass and bring your mind back to the focus. So just tilting your head forward gently closing your eyes, just having them a little bit open with some light, letting a bit of light come in. The tongue on the top of the palate behind the teeth. Lips slightly parted. Just relax your shoulders and bring your mind inward. Thinking of your motivation that you'll try to do this meditation in order to be able to help yourself and then to be able to benefit others. Now just focusing on the breath, following the in and the out of the breath, intake and outtake of the breath. And just keep bringing your mind backwards, back towards the breath. Counting can help as well, just counting. Now, to get some sense of the clarity of the mind, just think of looking up into a clear blue sky with no clouds, completely clear, and bring that sky down into you. Your mind is completely clear. Space that reflects everything. Now start to travel backward through time. Briefly skim over the conscious experiences you have had since waking up this morning. Are these part of the same stream of consciousness as your present experiences? Before waking up, you were probably dreaming. Try to recall last night's dreams. Do they also belong to this same mind stream? Continue to trace your mental experiences to yesterday. Two days ago. Last week. Think about the experiences of last month. And now think about last year. Two years ago. $5 years, even 10 years back. Just think back through and check if these experiences are of the same stream of consciousness. Avoid getting involved in any of your recollections. The purpose of the meditation is not to relive good times or sort out problems from the past, but to get a feeling for the mind's continuity. If you should find something in your memory that you would like to investigate further, put it aside until later. Go back in your life as far as you can, bringing to mind experiences from your adolescence and childhood. People are sometimes able to remember their infancy or even the time of birth. Relax and open your mind to allow such memories to arise. If you have difficulty assessing memories from the early part of your life, don't worry. Realise that just as your present mind stream is the continuation of experiences that you can remember, those experiences in turn are the continuation of early ones that you can no longer remember. Now think of your birth, the time you were in the womb, and the moment of your conception. It's not that you can necessarily remember these things, but you know that they happened. If your mind is a stream of experiences, each one arising from the one before it, then did it exist throughout those experiences, or did it begin to exist at some point? Consider the different possibilities. Did it arise from your parents' minds? If so, when and how? Or did it arise out of nowhere without any causes and conditions? Or did it arise from a mind stream that already existed before you were conceived in another life? See if you can open your mind to that possibility. Having reached back into your memory as far as you can, now gently bring your awareness into the present and again observe the thoughts and feelings that arise. Simply experience your stream of consciousness as it continues to flow. Feel its momentum. One thought or feeling leading to the next, which leads to the next, which leads to the next, and on and on. Finally, to try and get some idea where it goes from here, contemplate your mind stream flowing through the rest of the day and night, and then tomorrow, the coming days, weeks and years, up until death. What happens then? Consider the different possibilities. Does the stream of consciousness suddenly cease to exist? Does it transform into something else? Does it continue on encountering new experiences? Although you might not come to any definite conclusion, the important thing is to look with a clear and open mind. or dedicate any insight that you have gained to your eventual understanding of your mind for the sake of all living beings. And bring yourself back to the present in the room. Are there any thoughts?
Yes, I think that exercise was quite directed to traumatizing people who had been subject to terrible things in their life, and I don't think it served any positive purpose.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry if that happened, and yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sure it would happen to a lot of people, maybe not necessarily present, but if they were, if it was suggested that they do that, for example, the victims of this car trafficking in New Zealand,
Yeah.
you know, I can't see how anybody using that exercise who'd been through a significant trauma would not be forced to face the memory of that trauma. So what does that serve?
Okay, so for the purpose of the camera, the lady's saying that this could re-traumatise, bring up traumatic experiences, and absolutely, I'm really sorry if that's what's happened, and I think it's explained in the beginning of the meditation that it's trying to give you a sense of the continuum of your mind. And yes, for me, when I first did this meditation, it actually it gave me this sense of the momentariness and continuum of the mind. And I suppose, yeah, look, I've got no real answer for you there, because I'm not, I wouldn't presume to do that. And I think one thing is, like, a lot of people have had a lot of suffering in their life in many ways, and in one way of looking at this could be that suffering is momentary in itself, and it has causes and conditions, and then when you analyse down, and Buddhism would say that this understanding of the impermanence and the lack of inherent existence, the emptiness of our experience, is a healing process in itself, so that it helps you to loosen your grip on these experiences and trauma that continue to haunt us. And
Practice of returning to it constantly and reminding yourself.
yeah.
That doesn't cause any healing at all.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. And so this would be, and I'm sorry for anyone that, that this has been a difficult experience, this would be one you'd steer away from. And His Holiness always says, with Buddhism, take what's helpful, anything else, throw it out with the rubbish. He actually says throw it out with the rubbish. So this, you're right, it might be quite a disturbing thing to do for some people. So that I'm sorry if that's been the case, and that don't ever go there again, and try not to. But it really is about, again, I'll say it again, that this momentariness of the mind, so that you don't cling on to things. And I think in some senses it could be healing for people to actually do this process and realise that your mind is this continuum and it is impacted by all the good and the terrible things, and that by implanting positive, good things onto your mind stream, you can take it in that direction. And that's why love and compassion are such huge parts of the tradition. And love, in this tradition, they go very technically. The Dalai Lama, again, he calls it a science more than a religion, and that there's definitions for everything, and there's lists for everything. This is the 12 links. You've got the 7 this and the 3 that, and the lists of everything. And the definition of love is wishing others to be happy. So, we think that love is, I love you because you love me. I love you, I think you're fabulous, but when you do something wrong, I don't love you. So that's what they refer to that as attachment more than love. Love is actually, even if someone has hurt you, that you have the capacity to wish them to be happy. And like I said last week, it's not about them being happy in their bad behaviour and happy in their negative rubbish that they get involved in. It's wishing that they would figure it out, that this is not making them happy and it's hurting other people, and that there is no possibility for happiness in that. And that if you can stop doing negative things and start doing positive things of loving kindness and compassion, you will find some sense of happiness and peace. And I lost my train of thought. So it's that, the definition of compassion is wishing others to be free of their suffering, so that you can see their suffering and you wish them to be free of that. And what they call great compassion is thinking, well, how, yes, I can see everyone's suffering, but what am I going to do about it? And acting on it yourself. And that's what they call great compassion. And it leads to this state of bodhicitta, which is how am I going to help others? I can't even help myself. So I need to purify this and all my negative states and generate love and compassion in order that I can then help other people. And the only way I can help other people is to become enlightened myself and to generate these states in myself and then help others to do it. So bodhicitta is, they say that it becomes, what's the word? It's you see the suffering and it's unbearable. So you think, what can I do? What can I possibly do to help with this suffering? And the way I can help is actually by purifying my own negativities and generating love and compassion in my mind. And then I might have some clarity and enough selflessness that there's no hidden agenda in my actions that I can actually go out and help people and help them to understand as well. Look, I'll just quickly go through the rest of the links. It does get complicated, and the links aren't necessarily following one onto the other. They're kind of all interacting at different times, and they're all acting at the same time as well. So this is a really complicated teaching, and So I'm brushing over it just to give you a quick overview of it. It's said that the Buddha did this practice on the night that he got enlightened. He actually went through the 12 links, and he went through the 12 links in reverse, and I'll quickly do that at some point as well. So after you've planted the seed, your karma is imprinted onto your consciousness, then you have what they call craving. And craving is the attachment that evolves from ignorance and helps condition the karmic seeds sown into our mind stream. So we've got the seeds, and it's the craving that kind of wakes up these seeds. So when you plant a seed, you need water and sunlight and nutrients. So all of these other things sort of help the seed to sprout and come to fruition. Then from craving you have grasping. So there also exists in our mind stream another type of attachment called grasping, which has the special function of bringing karmic seeds to fulfillment. So the craving sort of waters the seed, and the grasping helps it to grow into a full-blown result. This is the 5th link of the 12th link chain. It manifests at the end of our life and conditions the throwing karma that gives rise to our next rebirth. So this is where it can get a little bit complicated, because it's talking about throwing karmas and your next rebirth and stuff. So the grasping it's almost like, well, they say that, at the end of your life, and this can help in that sense, that at the end of your life, of course, it's going to be a really sort of fraught time. But if you've done a lot of meditation and a lot of thinking and you've got a reasonable sort of control of your mind, it can actually be quite a peaceful time. And there are a lot of practices that you can do at the time of death to calm your mind. And they sort of say that your last thought is your next thought in the next rebirth. So that whatever state of mind, so they say that when you're with someone who's passing away, to have a very calm atmosphere, keep things as peaceful and calm around them. They say it's probably not great to be grieving in front of them, in someone that's passing away, just to make a peaceful and positive kind of atmosphere, and maybe do some meditation around them. But for them to see you in distress is not helpful necessarily for that person, so that you're trying to help them let go and move on, so that so that's they're saying that you will have a next thought, and that'll direct you towards your next rebirth. Then the 6th link is called becoming. At the end of our life, a throwing karma arises and immediately directs us towards our future existence. This special mental action that appears at the final stage of our life is called becoming, and I won't go into great detail about that. There are very, very detailed descriptions of what happens in this tradition. They have a lot of descriptions about what happens, and I've actually found it quite because it's a fearful topic, and I'm nervous talking about it, but it's actually sort of useful information, because mostly nobody talks about death, and we deal with it when it happens, and it's awful. And I think even if you were a great practitioner, it's not it's awful for everyone, and it's sad for everyone. But there's so much. They have all these descriptions and explanations about what's going on, and I've actually found that sort of quite comforting, quite useful information. And around people that I have been with that have passed away, it has been useful for me in how I interact with the people. But to be honest, mostly it's been useful for me in having some understanding of, or you don't, of course, if you don't believe in this, then maybe it's not going to be helpful. But for me, it made sense. The explanations make sense, and I have found it incredibly helpful. and to make sense of the awfulness of what's going on, and it sort of has helped not to have to go into the real depths of, you know, what the hell, awfulness of it, and with that, so I have found it really useful, and you know, and I feel like, you know, I've watched other people around me and my family members, and without, you know, and really it's in terrible confusion and despair and grief, and with nothing to kind of hold on to at the time. So whether, I mean, you know, it does make sense to me, but yeah, all I can say is I've found it really helpful. It might not play out this way, I don't know, but by the same token, it's actually helped my mind. And I would like to think it would help me at the time of my passing as well. That if I did enough thinking about this and enough sort of these practices, that it might make that easier as well. And I mean, that's all anyone can hope for, is it peaceful. So the 10th link is called, from becoming you have rebirth. So they say that you travel through an intermediate state. Your mind will travel through an intermediate state that they refer to as the bardo. And then the moment the wind leaves the bardo and enters into the united cells of the parents, the link of rebirth is established. So they say you're attracted to your future rebirth. So whether it's as a critter or a human or whatever, you are drawn to that. Karmically, you're connected to your parents. And so that flies in the face of, I didn't choose my family, because Buddhism would say you did. So, so you have a karmic connection with your parents. Love it or not love it, you know. Then, right. When all these circumstances are complete, rebirth takes place. So from the time of the link, you have then name and form. From the time of the link of rebirth is established until the sensory organs of the child are developed is the 8th link, which is called name and form. So the material substances that constitute the sperm and the ovum of the parents are the form, and the consciousness that dwells within the material basis is called name. So you've taken form and consciousness now as a living being, sentient being. The 6 sense organs is the next link. After the sense organs of the child have developed into a mature functional state, the 9th link, that of the 6 senses, arises. This is the construction of a building in which the finishing work, such as windows and doors, has been completed. So the 6 senses are your eye, ear, nose, touch, taste, and your mental sense as well. I think that's, I might have missed one, but it's then the 10th, the next link is called contact. The 10th link is contact. After the sense organs have evolved, they function through the sense consciousnesses to establish contact with outer sense objects such as visible forms, sounds, and so forth. So then they talk about the sense consciousness. So when you, for example, with the eye, when you see something, you've got a lump of jelly here with a lens in it that reflects, we know from, you know, looking at scientific things, that reflects onto something behind the eye and the nerve cells and goes to the brain and creates an image. So that ability in your consciousness to create the image is called the sense consciousness. So, which is also, it's a helpful thought in terms of the lack of inherent existence, because when you see something, there's a delay from the moment that the eye has seen it until the brain has processed it and created an image. So the thing, again, knowing with science, the thing that you've actually just seen has changed already by the time you've processed it. So it's like stars that died 20 million years ago, but we're only just seeing them now. But they're actually not there, but we're seeing them. So all our senses work like that. They're sort of coming in and being processed. So again, that's a way of sort of realising that nothing is inherently existing. So then you have feeling. So contact gives rise to the 11th link, feeling. Pleasant feelings arise from contact with pleasant objects, unpleasant feelings arise from unpleasant objects, and so forth. So that's self-explanatory. And then you have ageing and death. All this produces the ageing process, the 12th link of the chain of independent origination, which eventually finishes with our death. So this is Geshe Rabten that I'm reading from. He's written there are some really great books. Geshe Rabten's a wonderful Lama. So he says, we are all trapped in this process of repeatedly circling in the wheel of birth, ageing and death, intermediate state and rebirth. It is not something special that applies only to a few beings or something that happens only to others. It is a process that embraces every one of us. We are caught in psychic existence and experiencing the 12 links every moment of our existence. It's very important to contemplate this. If we become fully aware of this constant process of evolution, we'll come to a correct realisation of the problems of samsara. Meditating on this will gradually generate the sincere aspiration to achieve liberation. That aspiration is pure renunciation. However, merely having had the aspiration is not enough. We must put great effort into practicing the methods to bring about liberation. So, you know, liberation's a big thing, and we're here just to really learn to meditate. So, but you can see how this works, and this whole idea of contact and feeling. When you have pleasant and unpleasant feelings in and of themselves, that's not a problem. The Buddha would have had pleasant and unpleasant feelings, but it's the grasping, the seeing them as inherently existing in and of themselves, and then you crave them and then you grasp at them, that causes the problem. So it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy anything, or it doesn't mean that you can't get upset about things, but it just means the way you act on those things is what's causing the problem. So seeing them as seriously, inherently existing in and of themselves, and that causes us to generate attachment or anger or ignorance, indifference. Okay? Now last week I also talked about the deities, and someone said that they would like to do that. I thought of maybe doing a Green Tara meditation. Are people all right with that? Would they? What we do is we'll look at this image of Green Tara, and she's got one hand down, her right foot is out, and green is compassionate action. So she is a visual representation of compassionate action, and her foot is out because she's ready to leap to help. And her hand is, from her hand, she's generating sublime realizations. So she's helping people to understand their own minds and what have you. And then at her heart, she's holding she's actually holding two flowers. But I think that's the triple gem. Lynn, do you know? It's the body, speech and mind, isn't it? Yes, yeah. So it's everything that these images are doing represents something. They're not just, you can blindly worship them and they might leave a nice imprint, but if you actually understand them a bit better, then it's more powerful on your mind. So what we simply do, we've done the light meditation and you filled yourself with light, and it's basically the same. You're doing the same thing. But because you're using this image, it's having a... they say that these images have a really positive, powerful effect on you. And they are something that you can use at crucial moments. You know, if you're really stressing out, if you're really in trouble, you can visualise Tara filling you with light. And white Tara particularly is for health and long life. So for sick people, you would visualise white Tara above them or above you. I'll go through it probably quite quickly. Oh dear, she's not in here. I haven't got the sadhana. We'll do Chenrezig. Sorry. Chenrezig over here is the Buddha of compassion. He's holding a wish-fulfilling jewel. He wishes to benefit all sentient beings. It's the wish to become enlightened. And it's actually in that wish that you are freed. It's not that you kind of move on and go to and live in another place and become enlightened. It's actually the wish itself to benefit others is the enlightened state. Wishing to become enlightened yourself to benefit others is an incredibly powerful thing. And he's holding a crystal rosary and a white lotus. So this is realizations and bodhicitta. And he's in full lotus position. So if you, it's hard to see, but for most people, but it's actually good to perhaps come and have a look at it later. But as much detail as you can generate actually helps with your meditation. I just found Tara. Sorry. All right. I'm so sorry. We'll do the Tara because I said that first. And look, I'm going to be doing this quite quickly, so which is... Right. All right, so just get yourself relaxed again and bring the mind inward. Sit with your back straight. And I will go through this quite quickly because we're running out of time, but I think it's a nice one. So if you can, visualise Tara in the space before you. Just clearing your mind of any thoughts. And even if it's just green light. So Tara is emerald green in colour, seated on a lotus and moon seat. She's the manifestation of all the Buddha's omniscience, love and compassion, and is in the nature of light, not solid or concrete. Her left leg is drawn up, signifying her complete control over desire, and her right leg is extended, indicating that she is ready to rise to the aid of all beings. Her left hand is at her heart in the refuge gesture, palm facing outward, thumb and ring finger joined, and the remaining three fingers are raised. Her right hand is on her right knee in the gesture of granting sublime realizations, palm facing outward, with the fingers loosely pointing down. In each hand she holds the stem of a blue Utpala flower, symbol of the unblocking of the central channel. She is beautifully adorned with silk garments and jewel ornaments, and her smiling face radiates love and compassion. All sentient beings in human form surround you. The people you are close to are behind you. Those you do not like are in front of you, and all the rest are on either side of you. You are completely surrounded by all sentient beings as far as the eye can see. Everyone joins in reciting the following prayers, so I'll just go through these prayers. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma and Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma and Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma and Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger, and hold some close and others distant. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, in actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of psychic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. Now recall any special request you want to make, success in your spiritual or worldly activities, the health and long life of your relatives, friends, or yourself, or anything at all that you want. With these needs in mind, we recite a short prayer to Tara as many times as you can, while either remaining seated or making prostrations. Now this is the mantra, and I'll say it, and it gives a very brief explanation, and then I'll say the mantra on its own. Om, I prostrate to the goddess, foe destroyer, liberating Lady Tara. Homage to Tare, saviouress, heroine. With Tu Tare, dispelling all fears, granting all benefits with Ture. To her, with sound Soha, I bow. Om Tare, Tu Tare, Ture, Soha. Om Tare, Tu Tare, Ture, Soha. Om Tare, Tu Tare, Ture, Soha. As you recite the prayer, visualize rays of light with nectar running down them, like raindrops running down a wire, emanating from the point where Tara's left thumb and ring finger touch. The rays of nectar flow continuously, reaching you and all beings surrounding you, purifying your hindrances to Dharma practice and the obscurations to liberation and enlightenment. Remember the problems of all the people you are praying for. Think also of the sufferings and troubles being experienced by the sentient beings surrounding you. people fighting wars, feeling ill or lonely, those full of anger, pride or jealousy. As the rays and nectar enter their bodies and minds, their suffering and the causes of their suffering are completely extinguished. All sentient beings become totally liberated. Think with deep conviction that Tara has accepted your requests and answered your prayers. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Soha. During the first half of your recitation, you can visualize the purification described above. And during the second half, you can visualize that you and all beings become one with Tara. With each prayer, an identical Tara emanates from the Tara visualized in front of you and dissolves into you and everyone else. So you can visualize green light from Tara dissolving into you. So due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Tara and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, that has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. And just bring yourself back to the room. So, sorry if I get a bit carried away. I think, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this, and maybe that was a lot for one night. But are there any questions before we finish up? Sorry, yes. It's the same teaching, yeah. And maybe next week I will do the reverse thing. Yeah, it's the same teaching, but yes, the different traditions might put slightly different explanations into them, but it's definitely from the Buddha that the practice came. Yeah. Okay, so thank you all, and there's cake and tea in the dining room.